going to spend too much more time on this conversation about what is art and what isn't, and all of the arguments that we could get into on that. I think we're having a great discussion right now in the discussion board, but we're going to have to move forward. I think it's a shame that we can't have it all in person. Things tend to get a little more spirited when we have an in-class discussion. But we're going to move on, and so I'm going to just talk a little follow-up on that discussion, and sort of what I'd like us just to think about for the remainder of this class. You don't have to agree with all of this, but I'm going to ask that you at least consider it going forward. This is going to be our working definition for this class for what is art. I've got the example up on the screen right now of a license plate. I mean, a license plate is a great example to me of something that most of us would agree when a license plate is on the car, it's probably not art. It's a utilitarian object that is made for practical reasons. But yet, we've all been to places where we hang or we've seen license plate hung on the wall, and all of a sudden it does seem to become art. So moving on here, this to me is the real crux of the argument that we would get into, is who makes art. I'm going to say, for the purposes of this class, and I know some of you won't like this, but for the purposes of this class, I'm going to say that art is something that is made by humans, that only humans make art. And I know some of you are already angry with me for saying that. What about when bees dance? What about when an elephant paints a picture? I've seen all that footage as well. I don't know about the bees dance. Maybe that's art. I don't know. You know why? Because I can't speak to a bee. And I think it has to do with intention, that art is something that humans intend to be art. And I really think that, at least for the purposes of this class, I think that's about as good a definition as we're going to get. Art is what is something that humans have created or selected with the intention that it be art. Up on the screen, right, even the root of the word artificial is non-natural, a human creative endeavor that involves the perceptions or imaginations of the artist who is trying to say something in a particular way. So when we talk about the elephant with the paintbrush, the elephant painting, is that art? I don't know. I would agree that the thing the elephant produces is art. The difference is I would consider the human who trained the elephant or provided the elephant with the paintbrush to be the artist. If you have a computer program that creates a piece of art, I would still consider the programmer to be the actual artist. It's still a human making. A human is still the driving force behind it. I'm also, for the purposes of this class, going to say that something that just occurs in nature, we're going to, for the purposes of this class, I can already feel, again, some of you getting angry about this, but for the purposes of this class, we're going to say that art is something that does not occur naturally. We're going to leave all of our particular gods out of this discussion. You can cling to that, and that's great. And I have no argument. Only for the purposes of this class, I'm going to say that art is something that humans make with some intention behind it. It doesn't occur naturally. If something occurs naturally that you find beautiful and then you choose to paint it, now it's art. You choose to put a frame around it. You choose to build a house and a window. You can look out and see that mountain. I could say that maybe when you sit in your house looking out that window, maybe now that is art. But I would say that art has to involve a human interaction with the natural world, an altering or a selection of something within the natural world, altered or selected by humans for some purpose or another because a human says it's art. That's what we're going to go with. It's a little bit of a frustrating definition sometimes. I mentioned in one of the discussions that my own personal definition of art has changed. My definition of art used to be craft elevated to a high level. I still consider that my definition often of good art. But for something to simply be art, I think it needs to be something selected by humans in some way. And that really brings us to the next big thing, which is selectivity, right? If all art is selective, then art is inherently political. And in this day and age, that makes some people uncomfortable. They hear the word politics and people want to run away. We're not going to get into any I don't anticipate getting into any particular kind of discussion or debate about modern American politics. Everybody can just can just relax about that. But if art is selective, if what it takes to be art is for a human being to select something, to making is selecting, or to take something from nature and put a box around it, or select it and bring it into the museum and put it on display, now the artist has selected something, and it is saying something about the artist's values, something about the artist's taste, and is therefore political. Is all art equally political? I would say, of course not. A still life does not have a lot of political value in it, but you choose to paint a painting of something, and you're choosing what goes in that painting. You're choosing what doesn't go into that painting. That is a reflection of the artist's values, and therefore is political. The other thing I think that we need to reconcile with any particular form of art that we're looking at in this class is going to be that the art is going to have a subject, what the art is about, and a medium, which is the way in which the art is expressed to us. A subject and a medium. This is fairly easy to identify with paintings. So here we have a painting. This happens to be my favorite painting. If anyone knows what this painting gets spoofed a lot. They add different people into the window. This is a painting called Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, and we're going to be looking at some more of his stuff later. But this is a painting. I mean, you could argue maybe about what the subject is. The subject could be, a diner, people. Those are all accurate. You could also say the subject is a lonely street. Lots of things you could say the subject is. They'd all be probably right. And the medium, it's a little hard to tell on a computer screen, but this is a big canvas. It's an oil painting on canvas. So it's oil and paint on canvas would be the medium, and the subject would be a lonely diner, a street corner, however you want to describe this. But that's the subject and the medium. And these are pretty easy, again, with painting. Often. As we get into sculpture, I think we could say the subject of this is a woman's torso. The medium appears to be some kind of metal. It appears to be sort of a bronze cast of a woman's torso. What about when we get into abstract art? This is a Jackson Pollock painting. I can guess the medium a little more. It's a big canvas. Jackson Pollock used all kinds of different paint, so I would imagine there's probably house paint, there's probably acrylic paint, there's probably oil paint, all mixed in with that. But the subject, how do we identify the subject of that? Does it help? If there's a title, the title is Autumn Rhythm. Does that help us figure out what the subject of that is? What about a sculpture that doesn't have a title? If I don't tell you what it is, what would you, just for your own practice right now, what would you say the subject of that particular sculpture is based on what you can see? And what about from music? I encourage you all to go back. I'm having some trouble getting the audio lecture feature to work really well with PowerPoints. So I encourage you, the PowerPoint that I'm going through and recording right now is available to you. And if you want to go back and look at this, and actually you can play this piece of music. So this is just a piece of music. It's a piece of jazz from Dave Brubeck called Take 5. It's a piece of music a lot of you would know. But what's it about? What's the subject of a piece of music like that when it doesn't have lyrics? The title might help. Take 5. The piece is roughly 5 minutes long. I always assumed that it was sort of like, oh, take a break, listen to this music. Then I read that it was actually the 5th take they did in the recording studio. That's why they called it Take 5. So that just leaves me boggled. I don't know what the subject is now. What's the subject to you if you listen to this music? The medium is a little easier to understand. You identify the instruments, and that's the medium. But what is the subject? How do we find the subject of something when it's not really told to us? What about dance? Again, I encourage you to go back, maybe take a look at this dance. Go back to that PowerPoint and look at it. What would you call the subject of dance? The medium of dance is human bodies in motion, I would say. What's the subject? What's the subject when we get to theater? Again, the medium of theater are human beings on stage speaking and acting usually like human beings. But what's the subject matter? It's been said that the subject of all theater is humans. I think there might be some accuracy in that. We'll talk about theater in a few weeks. But I encourage you to go take a look at this PowerPoint on your own and ask yourself those questions. What is the subject? What is the medium? When you're looking at any work of art, that's a pretty good place to start. What's it about, and how are they expressing it to me?